Valpo, they recognize their coach for what, 300 or 400 wins? How many does Bobby have, you know? Just shy of five, yeah, that wins about five. Because she's been there a little longer than that coach in Valpo, and I think that the Iowa State coach, I can't think of her name. Anyway, she had 300, but she hasn't been there that many years, I think. Christie, yeah. Well, Johnson was there. Oh, really? Oh, wow. And who was the gal with that was evidently was that Desirado that was at midcourt on Friday night? Does she help the team all the time? Yeah. She is, okay. Okay. Yeah, I saw that in the news too, yeah. So Bill said that team was going back. But I thought that was they went to West, huh? I thought there was some Deserados that went to East years ago, but that must be part of the family. Yeah. Oh, could have been. I don't know. When's the Friday? No. Oh, really? Well, you got to serve it up. See what happens. There you go. But if she won't be, somebody will. Yeah. They look pretty deep to me.
Good evening. I'd like to call the regular board meeting of the Waterloo Schools Board of Education to order and ask that you join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. And will you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now Jesse Knight will read our mission statement.
The Waterloo Schools community commits to a comprehensive system of education and support to ensure that each and every student graduate prepared for college, career, and citizenship, as evidenced by continuing education, pursuing a career path, and contributing to a community.
Thank you, Jesse. The first item on our agenda then is item A, and this is a board celebration for Character Counts Week. And as Tara comes to the podium, I'm going to go ahead and get this recommendation on the table. And it is that the Board of Education proclaim the week of October 20th through the 26th of 2019 as Character Counts Week in the Waterloo Schools. So moved.
So moved.
Thank you, India. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sue. And discussion. Here we are, Tara. We're all yours.
Thank you. We are so pleased that annually since 2005, Waterloo Schools has supported Character Counts Week, this year being designated October 20th through the 26th. And we really appreciate that Chair Bruce Clark is here this evening to remind us all about what this stands for and how it has supported our staff and students in being people of good character over the years. And I should also mention that this exhibit lists many of the award winners through the committee selection over the years, a lot of our staff among them and students. So that's been a huge honor. Bruce, I'd like to invite you up.
Thank you. Thank you for your support. It sounds like you're already covered everything I was going to talk about anyway. No, so no, that's fine. No, again, thanks for your support. Our committee is small in numbers but strong in our passion and belief for what we do in encouraging and supporting the 6 pillars of character. So our couple of highlights from this last year. We worked with the Robert D. and Billy Ray Center in Des Moines at Drake, along with the National Institute for Civil Discourse, in holding a civil discourse training for the Mayor's Youth Council. We did that early this spring, and a lot of the leaders from youth leaders in our schools were there, and I sat in on it. It was an excellent training in the area of civil discourse. This is kind of a follow-up to what we did a year ago on a community conversation on civil discourse. And more plans are in the making for some additional things to do in that area, because we think it's an area that's much in need. We won't go any farther on that. We also have the Cedar Valley Champions of Character Dinner that we held in last April, and Tara mentioned that there's a lot of schools and educators and students that have been recognized over the years. This year, it's targeted for organizations, educators, adults, and students that exemplify the 6 pillars of character. So these are the ones we recognized, and I encourage you to think about ones that we need, that haven't recognized in the past, that we need to be nominating and recognizing again, because we're going to keep doing this thing, because we know there's lots of organizations and individuals out there that do a great job of exemplifying the 6 pillars of character. This year we recognize the Job Foundation, Aiden and Corbin Dolph, Justin Brandt, Bruce Barnett, Kevin Dill, Mackenzie Hickman, and the Tallgrass Prairie Center at University of Northern Iowa. So these are all organizations that, like I said, that exemplify the 6 pillars, and we know there's lots more out there. We're going to keep doing this until we recognize all of the organizations and individuals that believe that character counts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce, for all your dedication and passion for our kiddos and for the 6 pillars. We really appreciate it. Thanks. All right, anything further on that? Then all those in favor of approving that board celebration for Character Counts Week, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye. Motion carried. The next item on our agenda then is the Waterloo Schools partnership with volunteer agencies, and I'll leave Tara right up there, but tonight we are recognizing 4 organizations. Do you want me to go ahead and say them, or are you going to read them out? Or?
Sure, you can.
Okay. So we are happy to recognize the following groups for their continued commitment and service. Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Northeast Iowa, Junior Achievement of Eastern Iowa, the Job Foundation, and RSVP. And we so appreciate, we have hundreds of volunteers that work and support our students with relationships and financial education and everything else, but we are very appreciative of these 4 organizations this evening. So I'll turn it over to Tara.
Thank you, Shanley. You know, it's been a couple years since these 4 agencies had representatives come to speak with you, and because of some staffing changes, I just wanted to invite them back so you could get to know some new faces and just be reminded of how extensive and far-reaching these specific 4 agencies are in terms of their volunteers and what they're doing to support our young people. So I will just invite the representatives from the 4 agencies Shanley mentioned to come on up, and you can introduce yourselves and say a few words. We're so happy that you took time out to join us.
Don't all fight for the mic at once.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes. So my name is Sid McCone, and I'm the executive director of the Joe Foundation, and I just completed my 1-year anniversary in that role.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Kelsey Umphen. I'm the Director of Development at the Job Foundation, so thank you for having us tonight. Our vision is all children achieving financial success. And so we work with students, they're all low-income students, kindergarten through 12th grade from the Waterloo schools.
We are extremely grateful to have such a good partnership with the Waterloo schools because the uniqueness of our program would not be able to be accomplished without being able to get access to the students' grades, because we give them earnings based on their good behaviors and their grades in the classroom. So without that strong relationship, the very core of what we're trying to accomplish could not be done. 60% of the earnings that we give the youth are required to go into long-term savings. 40% of it they can spend and or give to charity. The portion that they spend are under supervised shopping trips. We take them to either Crossroads Mall or Walmart. So it isn't just a theoretical financial literacy program. We're giving them hands-on experience of how to manage and how to save their money. So throughout the year, they receive ongoing leadership and financial lessons. That's very, like I said, hands-on. They learn how to actually balance checkbooks, how to determine the difference between a want and a need, and then they also work with mentors who go with them on the shopping trips and occasionally the leadership lessons as well.
We currently have 55 families in our program, totaling 118 students. And our goal is for all of our students to graduate from high school with at least $3,000 in their savings account to help launch them into the next phase of their life. We recently had 4 girls graduate from our program last May, and they had an average of $3,300 in their savings account. So they exceeded their goal. We're very proud of them. So thank you again for your time and for your partnership. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Of the 118 students, how many of those are from the Waterloo schools?
All of them. All of them.
Okay, thank you.
Well, they have all been recruited from the Waterloo schools. A couple of them have since then transferred into the Catholic school system, but they're
Okay.
still in the program.
Okay.
Do you have new students that come along each year? Do you recruit, or as they graduate, you bring on new students? How does it usually work as far as getting students
We
in?
have been growing the past few years. We did bring on 6 new families this year for a total of 12 new students. Yeah, so we still grew, even though we graduated 4, we brought on 12.
Got it.
So that's what kind of our staff turnover last year was all about, is right-sizing our organization so we should continue to serve more kids. Because we know the need is a lot greater than who we're serving right now.
So
How many families or students can your program hold at one particular time?
That is an excellent question. And our board of directors is currently just launched its next 5-year strategic plan. And that is the big question that needs to be answered. Exactly how many more kids could we serve with our model, and how much more funds we would need in order to do that. We would love to be able to continue to grow, but we need to figure out what that max is, because obviously we want to keep the quality at the same and not just increase the quantity.
And I just want to say thank you. I worked with Kelsey and Sid this summer. Well, it could have been a couple of weeks ago. I just know it was warm outside. And so my sorority worked with them, and we worked with a family, and they were very anonymous, very discreet, very confidential, and we were able to work with one of the elementary school principals to serve a student who was in a critical situation with their family. So I just want to say thank you and the Jolt Foundation for doing the work that you do. It's very valued and very needed. So thank you.
We do consider ourselves to be a very holistic, whole family program. Our long-term goal is to bring the entire family out of that generational poverty, which is why we take all the kids in the family.
Right. We work with the family service worker, the principal, a couple teachers, like I said, my sorority, and the Jolt
Yeah.
Foundation. And
It was
so
a solid team of people who got together to
Exactly.
help this family out.
So,
Agreed.
so how do you interface with these students and families, or when, what time period?
Okay, so the elementary students have 3 lessons a year at the end of each trimester. We have an elementary lesson. We have students, education students from UNI, who come in and provide a financial lesson. The middle school students is when we really kick it into gear. They meet with us every Wednesday after school. We're currently, last year we were meeting at the Salvation Army, but we outgrew that. And thank you again for this partnership. Now you're letting us meet at the Waterloo Career Center. And boy, is that great for our kids. That's getting them in there even sooner than they would normally in, the way you have it worked up. So that's very exciting for them too. So we see them every week. And then high school, they have lessons once and twice a month.
And is this the students or the students and the families?
Those
during
are
this
just
time?
the students. How we interact with the families is we have large family activities throughout the year. We have what we call 3 kind of just fun days. One was last Saturday, bowling day. Then we have a wellness night at the UNI Wellness Center. And then the third activity we have is what we call Nature Day, which is at George Wythe Park. But this last Nature Day was that day it was 120. So we ended up going to get air and jumping on trampolines. But so normally we have those 3 family events. And then in addition to that, we have 3 what are our shopping days. And that's where the kids come, learn exactly how much earnings they had this last time around and how much they get to spend and how much they get to save.
So are the families required to participate?
Yes.
Okay,
So does that eliminate some students?
Fortunately, that's rarely happened.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a gamut of questions here, but as far as how do they get their earnings would be one. And then if you would have a curriculum that you use that would be available for other kids that might need it but aren't eligible for your program, or just a basic curriculum. And then do you track, like you said, the 3 graduates, do you track the success after they leave your program and become an adult? And then lastly, can you explain the process of the permission to get the grades and what that all involves, that what you use that for? And it's obviously very secure that the district just doesn't give grades out to people.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Actually, that's something that Tara helps us with. She makes sure that we get the proper permission forms. And when our parents come in, every year, they re-enroll their children into our program. And they sign the form, the Infinite Campus Permission Form, that says, I, parent, allow the Joe Foundation access to my children. So we don't get in unless you guys see a signed copy. So that's how we access that. So the other question is, how do we actually determine the funds they get? It is based on their grades, and I don't suppose you have memorized what grade letter gets how much.
It is different depending
Okay.
on the age level of the student, but our education committee does.
Right. I think that for middle school, I think that like at the end of the quarter, I think it's $15 for an A, $10 for a B, and $7 for a C. And there are no earnings for D's or F's. And then there is also, we keep track of their behavioral referrals. And then there's a bonus if there are no behavioral referrals. So we have a formula internally that the education committee uses. We do have a curriculum. We actually are in the process of tightening up that little bit. But as far as would we be willing to share it with people, I don't see why we wouldn't. Yeah.
I can just see the need for that.
Yeah.
And then track your graduates, do you?
Track the graduates, yes. We are definitely going to do a better job of that in the future. We actually had them sign a contract with us that they will check in with us this next year to make sure that those lessons, how those lessons have helped them. I think in the past it's been very, just kind of very loose, but we haven't had very many.
Yes.
Right.
The graduates who graduated from our program last year was the first time in 8 years that we've had students graduate from our program. And we recently had our 13-year anniversary. So we are learning about that process. But we have asked them, and they have signed saying that they will follow up with us, because we would love to hear how they're doing after they graduate from our program.
Come back and talk to the other kids.
I would like to add that in the beginning of this program, we started bringing them in at about the high school level, but it was quickly became apparent that this is the sort of thing that is years long, generational. And that's when we recreated the policy that we're going to bring them in elementary school and walk with them their entire journey. And that's when we set the goal of $3,000 by the time you graduate from high school.
Good work.
How is your program funded? If you've answered the rest.
100% donations. Grants and donations, private and business, private individuals and businesses. So all of the local good foundations that support all the great programs, you know the names, the McElroy and Guernsey and Waterloo Community Foundation, the Foundation Northeast Iowa.
And where are you housed?
We have an office on 4600 University Avenue.
Thank you.
So how often do you reward for the grades? Is it if it's end of?
For elementary, it's after every trimester because that's when they get their grades.
Yeah.
And then for middle school, it's quarterly. And then now the high school students, they get earnings monthly.
Okay.
Because by the time they get in high school, we've had them with us this whole time. We actually give them the responsibility of keeping their debit cards with them and spending when they need, because by then the goal is that we've taught them how to spend their money wisely. But when they're in elementary and middle school, we keep their cards until shopping days.
Yeah. Because it's a lot of A's, 200 A's just for the 300, you know, just for the $3,000, and that's just a portion of it. So it seems like that's kind of a hard amount to earn, but
Well, all the way, when you're thinking all the way from
Yeah.
kindergarten through high school.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Sid. Thank you, Kelsey, so much.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you.
All right.
Hello, I'm Carrie Ponce with Junior Achievement. I am not new. I've been with JA for 9 years, but I am very excited to be here to just tell you how excited we are to continue our partnership with the Waterloo Schools. All of our programs focus on work readiness, entrepreneurship, or financial literacy, and we've really worked to align the programs that are being implemented in the classroom to align with what the district's initiatives are, as well as with the State of Iowa social studies curriculum standards. We are K through 9, and this month we started the 4th, 5th, and 8th grade programs. And because of the quantity of the programs, we kind of do them in sections. So we'll have another large group start in February, and then again in April. This year we've expanded and are including quite a few enhancement activities. So in addition to having the classroom-based programs, we're also having some career exploration activities that are being done at the high school, as well as in the elementary buildings. We've also got like Touch a Truck is happening actually right now in quite a few of the elementary buildings, and so we've had some really awesome feedback from that. And then we have something new that we're trying at a couple of the elementaries as a pilot. It's called JA Emerging Entrepreneurs. It's kind of a week-long workshop. We're just taking about 45 minutes a day for a week and having the students work through some entrepreneurial activities with end-all experience on a Friday where we have them come to the gymnasium and get to interact with some local entrepreneurs. We just think that's an awesome way to help students realize that they all have the capabilities to run and own a business and develop some of those interests at a young age. And then having that experience with working with an actual local entrepreneur will be, I think, a really fun experience. And then we also have in the spring the JA Financial Literacy Fairs for the 7th graders to do that budgeting simulation. This will be the 4th year that we've done that. The JA program continues to be just a really structured way to include the community in our students' learning. This year we expect to have over 350 volunteers in the district. So if anyone's interested in either visiting the classroom when it's in action or just getting involved yourself, I encourage you to just go to our website, which is jaeasterniowa.org. Thank you.
So is most or all of your contact with the students during the regular school day?
Yes, yes.
It's all
during the school
the-
day. Mm-hmm. Yep, teachers remain in the classrooms during our programs.
And just describe your entrepreneurship program a little bit.
Sure. So all of our programs, K through 12th grade, will touch on entrepreneurship, usually 1 or 2 of the 5 to 6 visits that the volunteer makes. We've just taken that a step farther and really focused on the entrepreneurship piece of it. We think it's kind of a nice tie-in to some of the things that are happening at the Career Center, just to develop some of that business interest. So we'll be doing that this year in 3rd through 5th grade. How to run a business, start a business, knowing who your customer would be, just some of those.
So did you say K through 12 or K through 9?
In the district, we're K-9. We offer programs K through 12.
So,
Yes. Yes.
oh,
We don't go to 12 yet. We just go to 9.
is there a reason we don't go to 12?
I think that we have pieces that are in high school, like
She's talking consistently
Right.
with all kids. They do work with the Career Center. They do some programming with us. They actually worked recently with Hawkeye Community College to get a class potentially, and actually I think that was successful,
Yes.
wasn't it, to get that?
credit.
So I think she's talking consistently, but we do work with sophomores, juniors, and seniors. Yeah,
correct.
Okay, because that fits, as you
it
mentioned.
fits with the Career Center. Right?
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
that underlying theme of all those courses should be entrepreneurship.
Right. Right.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie.
Hello, my name is Sally Timmer, and I am the RSVP coordinator. RSVP is the Retired and Senior Volunteer Program, and we work with seniors 55 and older to find places for them to volunteer in the community with organizations that have a volunteer need. And one of our focus areas is the Reading Buddies program, which we work with the Waterloo schools to help fill that. So what we do is we find volunteers to go into the classrooms and read with children with low reading levels and spend some one-on-one time with them reading. And we have right now about 115 volunteers, with more coming in because of the change in sponsorship. RSVP used to be under Mercy One. We are now under the Volunteer Center of Cedar Valley. And so with that, we had to have everybody sign new volunteer forms. So that number will be increasing as we get everybody re-enrolled in the program as well. And I'm newer, so I just started in July. So any questions for me?
What grade levels do you cover?
We work with elementary schools.
Thank you.
And how are the students identified? I know you said that they were, maybe lower reading levels. Does the teacher pull them out? How do you?
Yeah, so I work with the literacy coaches, and I let them know when I have a volunteer who is looking to help out, and then they help identify teachers that have a need for volunteers in their classroom.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have volunteers in any other aspects besides Reading Buddies?
Yeah, so we also have ones that are just teachers' aid. Some of our 55 and older volunteers also do Big Brothers Big Sister mentors as well. So they are in some other capacities, but the bulk of them are as Reading Buddies.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You don't do any math?
I actually think there are a couple that do math too, but our focus is the reading.
Yeah. Thank you, Sally.
You're welcome.
That's great.
Well, good evening. First, from a former board member, thank you for the service and the work that you do. It's not easy to be a board member, because I've sat in that chair and I did say aye when you voted last, so I just want to. I have been at Big Brothers Big Sisters. I'm Yolanda Williams, a new executive director. I just celebrated my 7-month work anniversary yesterday. And we are the premier one-to-one mentoring agency in Northeast Iowa. Our territory currently there's 13 counties. We're currently active in 7, and obviously Black Hawk is our largest county that we're in. So our mission is, we have a new updated mission and vision. So our vision is all youth achieve their full potential, and our mission is to create and support one-to-one mentoring relationships that ignite the power and promise of youth. We are currently serving 257 youth in our 7-county reach at the moment. I did pass, there's a handout for you, so I don't know if you all received that, but you do have a handout. So for our last year, we served 418 students, and approximately 208 of those were enrolled in Waterloo Community School District. So that's kind of some amazing numbers to share with you. A few other stats before I kind of share the focus of the agency and where we're going. 90% of our littles got along better in relationships with their parents. 96% of them believe that they can and will graduate from high school. And 96% of these students that have come onto our program are not involved in the juvenile justice system, regardless if they have been or in the past. 96% of our littles are not engaged in the juvenile justice system. As we know, that the school to prison pipeline is a very real thing, and we get the opportunity to help bring in community members that are investing in our young people, whether that's school-based mentoring, whether that's community-based mentoring, or work-based mentoring, which is kind of a new facet for us. The other thing to share with you as the new director is I have some new visioning for this agency, which is very exciting. I know that our young people are avoiding risky behaviors, and they come from various backgrounds and lots of challenges. And our role is really to be more proactive with them, to help them succeed and to live to that full potential. And one of the things that I thought that you would be interested in is I'm very focused on college and career exploration for our littles. And so one of the new initiatives for us that we are looking at exploring in 2020 is really partnering with local businesses, not just to provide work-based mentoring, but also to provide opportunities so that on a random day I can call Kingsley or Tara and say, hey, we're interested in young people going to the Career Center because there's certain things that they maybe they haven't yet experienced it, and they're in elementary and middle school. We do have high school littles as well. But to being able to provide those hands-on opportunities while they're kind of figuring out what they want to do, you might have that engineer that they don't know that they want to be an engineer, but they know that they like components of engineering. And so how amazing is that going to be for our community is that we're going to help spearhead with local businesses and industry partners of will you open your agency for 2 hours so that we can have some match activities to explore college and or career exploration. That's very exciting to me because we should be investing earlier in the future of these littles, and what a better way to do that. So that's something very exciting for us as we're moving forward with this. Our goal is for the next program year, so 1920, we want to serve 500 students. We have a ways to go. Currently we have 257 in our program, and so we are actively seeking funds, whether that's through grant funds, corporate individual donorship, and our fundraisers as well, to raise those dollars to support those potential 500 matches that we would like to have in the upcoming year. So it's very exciting to be here in the Cedar Valley. It's very great to be here. I've been able to meet with several of you individually. It's truly been an honor to be here and really talk about our program and what we're doing. And we're here to invest in our community. No matter what your background, we welcome and encourage diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think that's a model that fits right along with this school district. So we're happy to help in any way that we can. Questions?
How do you measure, particularly the last two, avoidance of risky behaviors? How do you measure less ongoing sadness, and how do you measure the drug use?
So we have surveys that we, based on our national standards, we have to do surveys for both the bigs, the littles, and the family on an ongoing basis. And it's really having a conversation with the littles to talk about, have you been feeling sad and why? Are you feeling more optimistic? How are you getting along with your family? And then the big also kind of has those same questions because they're also able to see what their development is like since they've been matched, and they have those very personal, in-depth conversations with each other. And then the other part is you also touch base with the families and ask about how the child is progressing as well.
So your baseline on sadness is what?
I will get that to you because I'm still learning all the programming pieces, but I will figure out and I will shoot that information over so you can have that information.
Because it's very subjective, obviously, and
Yes, it is. It is.
It sounds like, Yolanda, some of it may be self-reported as
Some
well.
of it, some
that
of it is.
Some of
yes.
it is, and
absolutely, and it also depends on the program as well
Okay.
that you're in. And so, one thing we do have littles that have maybe some challenges, and they have an IEP, and so we're really touching base with therapists, and we're talking to teachers as well, because we want a whole picture of our little. We don't, if we're not asking those questions from everyone involved, how do we really support them? And so that's just how we're really trying to get that information, is through those methods.
so is this information shared with, who's it shared with? Is it shared with district personnel at all in terms of how you're assessing whether students are sad or depressed?
I think if it's a case by case and if there's cause for alarm, because we do have match support specialists that actually do the work to work with the bigs, the littles, and the families as well. And so if there's something where there's an alarm and we need to contact those support people, that's how that's done. Considering some of this information is confidential, we're not really sharing that as just random information. But if there's a red flag to say, there's something here that we need to investigate, that's part of the role of the match support specialist, is to really help help that family to really find out what's going on with that little's life.
How many of the 257 matches have are within with Waterloo School District?
So out of our last year's number, out of 418, there was 208. So I would probably say approximately right now, it's a higher number. I would say it's probably like 180.
180 on a two.
Ish.
And where are you getting most of your mentors? Usually in the area here.
So we get some through our partner programs, but that's something that actually we haven't been as proactive with recruitment, and so we are working on actually 2 new recruitment and enrollment positions, and so we will be actively engaging all community partners across the Northeast Iowa area. So currently I think a lot of bigs hear about it, it's word of mouth. We are putting together recruitment strategies of, okay, how are we looking at faith-based community? How are we looking at industry? How are we looking at maybe it's retired teachers? That's not something that I don't think we've looked at before. Actually looking into doing some high school recruiting for juniors and seniors. It's been a long time since we've recruited high school bigs to be littles as well. So really looking at what is the population of potential mentors that we haven't tapped into, because as you know, as recruiting and volunteering, you can't be passive about it. You've got to go out and meet them where they are and get them interested. If you go to them, a lot of people will sign up and say, yes, we'll do it. But if you're not asking them to change the life of a child, they're not going to just walk in the door. I mean, you do have those, but it really is about recruiting and sharing the work that you're doing in the program to help them understand that, yes, your time does make a difference with our littles in every program that we have.
Okay. And what would you say the average age of your mentors are?
Oh, that's a wide variety, actually. I would probably say, if I had to guess, my guesstimate would be probably between 35 and 45 is kind of the average age, but we have some across all generational spectrums, and we are open to that because every generation brings something of value to our young people. Thank you. Any other questions? I thought there would be more. I'm excited.
thanks, Yolanda.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to all 4 of these great organizations. Clearly, we have a lot of questions. We're not without that. So we appreciate you being on the hot seat for a little while. Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, then we will move on to item C. This is a donation to the West High Girls Basketball Program. And while Dr. Pappas and maybe Tara comes back, I think she's taking a picture quick, I'm going to go ahead and get this recommended motion on the table. And that is that the Board of Education accepts and acknowledges with gratitude the donation of $5,000 from Molly Ritter Dubois in support of the West High School girls basketball program.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. Woo, we got everybody on that. And with that, is there any discussion? Dr. Pappas, I'd love to have you come forward and tell us a little bit about Molly. I was lucky enough to know her, but
Yes, Anthony Pappas, Director of Athletics, Waterloo West High School. And I'm not so sure, did you go to school with her? I thought you did. She was 1988 graduate of Waterloo West High School and received a basketball scholarship and played at Nyack and then also Winona State. And then from Winona State, graduated and was employed with a worldwide company called, I believe, C.H. Robinson. And she's risen to the ranks of executive vice president in charge of transportation, overseeing, I think, 68,000 providers worldwide. And so Molly was nominated for the Academic Hall of Fame. And so during our homecoming ceremony, she came back with her family and was inducted in the Academic Hall of Fame. And at that time, she was kind of blown away by what we had done for her and her honor and how she was treated. And so before she left, she asked if she could make a donation. And I said, well, it's up to you. It's certainly not mandatory that you donate just because we put you in the Academic Hall of Fame. And she said, well, I said, you can donate to West High School, you can donate to West High Athletics, whatever you want. And so then she left. And then about a week or two later, she sent me the check in the mail with a specific stipulation because of a soft place in her heart that it'd go to West High girls basketball. And it was for $5,000, which is, very significant amount that I was kind of blown away by. But that's how strongly she felt. I called her to make sure that's what she wanted, and she said absolutely, and once again showed the gratitude. So it was wonderful that she made that donation, and we're proud of her and very appreciative for her doing that. But what questions would you like to have? Because I brought some information here, and I figured somebody would ask some questions.
Like, how are you going to earmark that money? Like for
All right,
camps
good question.
or for?
I have it right here for you.
I'll take the spreadsheet. Come on.
All of our athletic coaches and teams have a revolving account or fundraising account, if you'd like to call it that. Those accounts are specifically set up to subsidize the regular accounts that Michael provides and very well provides us all with. So it's for the extras. And every sport and every team does many extra things. And I'll add this, because I'm very, very, very proud of the West High coaches that collectively probably raise around $150,000 a year on their own for the 22 sanctioned sports that we have. I don't ask them to do it, I don't force them to do it, but they choose to do it. And so all of us, almost all of us, engage in some sort of fundraising. We realize in today's day and age, for the extras, that's what you have to do. But once again, I've got to point out that Michael, once again, provides us with a very substantial budget that takes care of all of our needs. But to answer your question more specifically, it would be, we would use some of that money for a bowling and pizza night for our special needs students. Every year, one of our community service projects is to take out some of our most severe and profoundly handicapped students at West High, and we collectively as a team on a Friday night will take them bowling and then take them out for pizza. And it's been a very moving experience and worthwhile experience for all of my players over the years. We've been doing it probably going on 20 years now. So much so that even one student, it was like the first time his parents ever let him out in public without them being there. They stayed across the street at a restaurant close by, but we kept close track of them. But something like that runs us several hundreds of dollars for the bowling, and then to feed approximately 30-some people of pizza, so that would be one thing. Another thing, we use that money to help fund, let's say, a little Christmas party for our student athletes there, possibly just buying them some memento or gifts. Also, we keep track of their birthdays, so birthday treats. These are all extra things, hopefully to make people feel a little more a part of the program there. If we've accomplished some special goal, we might buy each one a T-shirt, which is allowed by state law as long as it's under X amount of dollars, and it is. So T-shirts for everyone could be bought there. Most definitely at the end of the year, we always have a nice banquet. The banquet, we make it affordable for everyone. And we do that by offsetting the cost. We still would ask for a minimal amount, let's say $5 per person or X amount per family, but the rest of that cost would be subsidized from money that was given to us here. So that would be another item right there. Another thing, if we have needy student athletes, you know, very quietly, we make sure we provide for their needs. We don't usually use the McElroy Fund very much. Girls basketball, some of our others do, but we feel we're kind of raise our money, our own money to take care of those types of things. So could be used for needy person's shoes, because we buy team shoes that are very, very expensive, but we make sure everybody has the same types of shoes on. Another thing that we might buy will be flowers for Parents' Night, so we make sure every parent has flowers that we present to them. And then Senior Night, all seniors get special flowers, recognition, things of this sort. We'll also do like a special movie night, once again a bonding activity, movie night and pizza there as well. Then what we always like to do, and this is kind of a side note, is we always purchase dress sweats for our varsity team members especially. And those, of course, are not cheap. They can run about $150 a piece without the embroidering. And then also, we, as a memento for them, we allow them to keep their shooting shirts, and since they are going to keep them, they have to raise the money one way or the other, and they put their names on the backs of those shooting shirts, and they get to keep those. We always do a poster. A poster is another $400 item a year that we have. And the poster there, we do sell ads, because I figure the next question is going to be, how did you generate all this money all these years? And I'll answer that if you want me to in a minute. But a poster there can run about approximately $400 for the poster. Then something new that has happened in the last few years, and it's kind of mandatory by our conference, is we are mandated in many sports to participate in what is called a huddle. It's a technological program where all of our videos of all of our games are uploaded. There's a library. Nobody has to scout anymore. So most of our teams, this is a very costly thing, and since it's required, then it's part of the regular budget. But Huddle also has some offshoots to make some more money, and the one we use is called Huddle Assist. Huddle football has a special thing, and the Huddle Assist is about $1,000 extra cost that we have all of the coaches that wish those extra things to pay for out of the revolving account. Huddle Assist will cost us just under $1,000. It breaks down game film, which we also do ourselves, but it also breaks down scout video for us and turns it around in a 12-hour period of time, which can be very, very helpful to us. And it's like keeping up with the Joneses. It's an arms race. You know how that goes. But we make sure that we stay on top of those things. So there's a smattering of examples of what you asked, what we spend the money for.
And would you ever charter a bus? Is that, I mean, somebody asked me that, and I don't know.
That's a great question. Buses are very expensive. Charter buses are very expensive. Usually it's between, depending on where we go, $200 to $400 for a regular Durham bus, and a regular bus with Hawkeye, who years ago I had set up a special contract with, that we would not get their top-of-the-line buses, and we would not necessarily get the largest buses or the newest buses, but at the same time they would cut us a deal to save roughly about anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 to $4,000 a year for West High, as long as we guaranteed 25 charter buses. But yes, we would charter a bus for very special events. If we're playing a state tournament, yes, we'll charter a bus. If we're going a long ways and it's for a regional final game, which is the most important game of the season up to that point, we'll probably charter a bus. The difference between a charter and a Durham bus is roughly anywhere from $600 to $800. So for girls basketball, it is fairly expensive, and it's worthwhile maybe for the most important things, but almost never do we do them for regular season games for girls basketball. Reason being, we take our, 30-some people on a regular bus, and most of our parents are very, very involved. So then the student athletes ride back home, especially on a weeknight, with their parents. So it's almost like, in a way, not the best use of the money. But the option is available for all of our coaches. If they want to raise the money and they wish to, take a chartered bus, then we will okay that. But we don't use district money for charter buses.
Thank you.
Well, that's a good question.
Dr. Pappas, I know you have a booster meeting tonight, so I will try
I have
to.
a little time,
You have a
so
little
keep
time?
shooting
Okay,
me
all
with
right. I'm making
questions.
sure. I'm making sure that we're not keeping you. So does anybody else have questions for Dr. Pappas?
Did you want to know our funding sources before
Yes,
this?
yes. Go right ahead.
Okay. Well, we would always do a free throw shootout where our players would go out and get pledges for how many free throws they make.
Sure.
And then the winner, whoever wins the free throw shootout, every one of their pledges win a prize. And our student athletes, because they really are excellent, they tend to have no problem raising a substantial amount of money. So
Great.
there's several $1,000s that we could raise there. Selling ads on posters generates money for us as well. Another thing that we're going to do this year, even more than before, is apparel. We'll have our own line of West High Girls Basketball apparel
Great.
that we'll make available online, and then we get a kickback from that, and that can generate several thousands of dollars as well. And this is all fundraising money, by
Sure.
the way. But really, I'll be honest, the free throw shootout is a minimum amount of work.
Right.
It's not like I'm handing out M&M's bars or candy, and keeping track of all their
Right.
bags there.
Kids do their
Posters,
own.
I sell the ads. I've been doing it long enough that I've got the contacts. Basically, I just send them the invoice every year. They send me the money. Apparel is fan cloth, so they take care of everything. We design it, and on and on and on. And then been really fortunate over the years that not having a donation of this size, but other people have donated money to the program that I'm very proud of as well. And those are our main funding sources, other than, and I'll share this with it, and Michael can, I'm very fortunate in that I'm one of the few high school coaches, and girls high school coaches in America. I have a Nike contract that provides us with apparel and dress sweats. But that apparel and dress sweats, it's the wholesale value, but the retail value is very expensive, and the state says the players have to raise the wholesale value to be able to keep it.
Mm-hmm.
But I have no bill to pay. They give it to me. The players raise the money through their free throw shootout or whatever, other ways, and then they get to keep that apparel, and then all the money goes back into the account. We have no bill to pay.
That's great.
And so that's been a godsend for many, many years, actually over 20-some years, for me and for West High Girls Basketball. But I share that with you. I don't really
Thank
share
you.
that with too many people, but
Right.
you're the boss.
Well, you just shared it now on close.
Yeah, there we go. So,
Will you please make sure on behalf of the board that you thank Molly and her, for this generous donation? And it made me think that maybe she would be, because she's in the Academic Hall of Fame as well, that maybe she'd come back again and maybe be part of our Coaches Academy and talk a little bit about her experience. I think she'd be, now that she's come back once, I think she might come back again.
yeah, she'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
I wrote her a personal thank you letter.
Great.
And then also a letter came from Michael's office
Okay.
thanking her as well.
Wonderful.
And I also called her as well. When I
Okay,
saw that
perfect.
check, I was very moved and impressed by
Yeah.
her generosity, so.
And
Sorry to
maybe-
take up so
Excellent.
much of your
Thank you.
time.
Would you need to, at some point, establish, like somewhere in your office hall? You have the big halls, but athletic supporters of West High, a certain level of donation, have their names up there, because that's a cool thing to do.
Yes, and some people want their donations known, and
Right.
some people don't want their
Right.
donations known. Where we've done that was at Central Memorial Stadium, and we just redid the donation board, and it's very impressive. But most definitely, that's something that we could think about. And they have different levels. A lot of people go through the Athletic Booster Club, which is a meeting I'll
Yep.
be going to here shortly, and they notate those people by different designations there as well. And then, of course, we also have the Athletic Foundation, which is very good for West High also. But I'll
You got-
keep that
you
in
got
Thank
the
you.
bricks too.
Yep.
The bricks out front. that had
which
the-
are two separate entities. I
Right,
gotta make that clear
exactly.
to everybody, so.
Well, that would
Thank you.
deserve a brick out front, wouldn't it, $5,000?
Yes, I think Molly has a brick already in the Brick Plaza. We have a Brick Plaza
Yes,
out there
yes.
too.
Excellent. All right.
Sorry
I
to
am
take up
going
so
to
much of
call
your
the
time.
question and ask our board to accept this donation. So all those in favor of accepting this generous donation of $5,000 from Molly Ritter Dubois, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye, motion carried. Thank you again, Dr. Pappas. We really appreciate it. Takes us then to item D, Exhibit D, which is the donation from the R.J. McElroy Trust. And the recommended motion is that the Board of Education accepts with gratitude this donation in the amount of $5,700 from the R.J. McElroy Trust for the 2019-2020 school year.
So moved.
Thank you, Jesse. And a second? Thank you, Astor. And discussion? Tara's here, and I'm more than happy to take questions since I work for McElroy
Yes,
as well.
I defer to Miss McNally.
So how are the amounts per school determined?
Over the years, Jeff Sommerfeld in the business office tracks exactly how each of those funds is spent. And so based on how much was spent the year before, it's how much is put back in the coming year. And I can't tell you because that's not on this exhibit. I know how much was given to each school, but some of the schools that weren't given money had money. Yeah, I'm saying, but I don't have the on that exhibit, I don't have the starting fund. Lyle,
Okay.
it's in there.
Page 7.
Yeah. There it is.
Yeah. But some are at zero.
Right, and that was because they probably didn't spend their fund last year and already had a balance.
Okay.
But I don't have the balance amounts on here. I can get you the balances tomorrow, but
No, I was just curious
Okay.
as to how that was
Yeah.
allocated.
What's considered an emergency need?
anything that a student might need that there isn't already a coverage for at the building level.
It really is kind of the catch-all. Honestly, it could be eyeglasses, it could be shoes, it could be, I mean, it's
Yeah.
just, it really does run the gamut of anything.
And the other thing that's happened, I think, is that over the years, McElroy's kind of morphed it into not only emergency funding, but opportunity. They've tried to use youth emergency and opportunity. So if there was a student who had an opportunity to maybe attend a conference that they had been nominated and won, but they didn't have the money to get there, that McElroy would pick up the difference just to make sure that that experience, that the barrier of paying for that wasn't, that obstacle wasn't there. And of course, that would be approved by the principal or the family support worker. And then all those are tracked and then returned to the trust. So at the end of the year, they file basically an end of the year annual report that lists everything that was spent. Of course, that's quiet. It's not with names on it. It's just how it was spent.
Okay.
Tara, I didn't mean to take your thunder. Are there any other questions? All right. I will be sure to thank the trustees next time I see them. So, all those in favor of approving the donation from the McElroy Trust for $5,700, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, same sign. And chair abstains. Thank you. Motion carried. Great, that takes us then to information from individuals and delegations, and I see that we've lost lots of our audience, but I'm just double checking to see if there's anybody out there that wants to address the board, and if so, please come forward and state your name and address. All right. Then seeing none, I'll move on to our consent agenda this evening, which consists of 7 items. The minutes of the September 23rd, 2019 regular board meeting, personnel appointments and adjustments, which are item F, bills due and payable and bills paid between board meetings, which is item G, Substitute para educator / clerical staff compensation increase, item H. Destruction of audio tapes and minutes of board closed sessions, item I. The Waterloo Career Center change order number 15, item J. The date of the public hearing for the sale or disposal of surplus property, item K. Can I get a motion to put those items on the table, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Sue. And a second?
Second.
Thanks, Jesse. Are there any items that board members wish to have removed from the consent agenda?
F.
F as in Frank?
Yes.
Okay.
H.
H
K.
and K.
Sorry.
All right. Anything else? All right, then all those in favor of approving items E, G, I, and J, please signify by saying aye.
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 And those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye, motion carried. That takes us to item F then, which is on page 12. And the recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve the personnel appointments and adjustments as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. And discussion.
Sue, before you get started, the reason why you have an updated one in front of you is because there are a couple of numbers missing. Actually, a salary number was in place of the effective date on the first classified one, and so we needed to do just a general cleanup overall. As far as that was concerned, we just had some corrections to make, and so that's why you see an updated one. And we'd missed a couple of people that had came through our automated process, and so since we were making those changes, we wanted to make wholesale changes, and so there are a couple of names in there as well that have been added.
Thank you for that, Cliff.
More, again, just more from the one was a leave and one was a personnel appointment. Those are the two that were added.
Okay, thank you for that update. And then I just was wondering, as far as how overall staffing, I see a couple of the positions were student need driven. And so just wondered if we're pretty good at staffing levels in all of our buildings, and if we, how our special positions that were harder to fill, the special ed, and how we're coming on those.
Yeah, we still have a number. I guess I'll break it down from a para and teacher standpoint first. We still have a number of para positions open that we're still trying to fill. I think what you see from a student need standpoint is just a growing need, and some changes that you may see from maybe an IEP that would lend us to making a change where you have to hire an individual. I think overall, from a teacher standpoint, we are seeing, again, going back to special education, some need again. We already have posted a couple of positions, and we already have pre-graduates, and so we've contacted individuals that are student teaching for us, and we're trying to nab them now with offer letters. Then assuming they get their licensure, we can go ahead and offer their position. So they've already gone through some of the interview process along those lines. That's where we're at with staffing so far with some of our hard to fill positions, and so we're going to continue to be as aggressive as possible. So spend a lot more time in the work now rather than waiting until our hiring season. And so you may see a more robust agenda here over the next couple of months because of that aggressiveness. So there's less on the back end.
And I just, at Kittrell, there was one student need position, a first grade teacher. So was a new section added? Or?
Yeah, great question. So forgot about that. So our last, maybe 2 meetings ago, no, I think this is October. Yeah, it was our last meeting, I believe, or maybe 2 meetings within September. We had talked about, hey, after Labor Day, all the changes have been made as far as shifting. That was what we thought. And then there were a couple of changes that were made within our district. One internal change at Kittrell at the 5th grade level, and then one additional change at the 1st grade level, which I think you're articulating. And that was because our numbers were high, but we didn't feel comfortable moving the changes within the district, as far as usually we look at it from a K3, so K to 2. So anytime there's maybe a significant student need or student number at K2, we try to look at where are we low in another K through 2 school. We didn't see that, and so ultimately one of the options were opening the position, and we were able to find somebody to fill that position. And so that's where you see some of those changes from that perspective.
Thank you.
So was this a result of late arrivals?
It was somewhat of a result of late arrivals, and it was also somewhat of a result of because of the changes of when we started school and we got our numbers in. Normally, we like to make those changes. Well, I say normally. Last year, we made those changes. We had about a week and a half to do some of that work. Unfortunately, we were really confined within a week, and then we didn't really know about some people coming in. So yeah, to answer your question, some of it was late arrivals, but in general, it was trying to hit that sweet spot of we're going to try to make all the changes prior to Labor Day. And unfortunately, there were a couple of things that we saw when we looked at the numbers that didn't drop off, that we thought were going to drop off, and maybe some kids that have left that actually stayed, that led us to, you know, making sure we had another teacher available. Basically, so rule of thumb is whenever Kingsley says we're not going to make any more changes after Labor Day, there may be one or two more. So moving forward, I won't make any absolute promises.
Thank you. All right, then all those in favor of approving the personnel appointments and adjustments as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye, motion carried. That takes us then to item H, which is on page 27. And this is the recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve the proposed pay increase for substitute para educators and clerical staff.
So moved.
Second? Thank you. Was that Esther? Yes. Thank you, Esther. All right, and discussion.
I just wanted to, bring this up as a very good thing. I think we need to look at compensating people that are coming in to fill in on an as-need basis, and I appreciate that we're offering a little bit more money to all the, and it was effective, I see, this week, so I really
Right,
appreciate
Wednesday.
that. So just wanted to bring that up, that we are slowly but surely trying to raise the wages of our support staff that are in a helpful and needed situation.
What's our current wage rate?
Currently, we pay $9 for our subs.
Oh, so we're raising it.
Yeah, it's going from 9 to 11.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. And then what's the rate for the paras?
$12.48 is our step one.
And you indicated we still have openings, so are we not competitive at that rate on paras?
We are. I mean, I think ultimately we're looking at holistically how are we making. Part of the reason that I think we have some of the issues is that how are we advertising for the position and making sure that the position job description is matching with the actual job. And so as you've seen a lot of turnover just from the board agenda, some of that has just been because of, I feel like, for lack of a better word, miscommunication as far as expectations. One of the key components that we're trying to use with this particular initiative as far as moving up $2, which is from a business sense, a large increment, is to make sure that we can have opportunities for people to work within the system, see if they like the job, and move it forward. This isn't necessarily new as far as our employee groups. We actually do the same thing for our AFSCME group currently. They all come in as subs, and then if they like the job, they then bid for it and move forward. Same thing for our food service staff as well. And so we really like that construction of it, and so we're really trying to see if we can increase our sub pool by making it competitive with other opportunities within the Cedar Valley, and then help them move into those para positions and roles.
But I agree with Sue. I think we generally need to look at these lower paid staff and see what we can do. Has the state funding set for this next year?
No.
No, so it wasn't a 2-year thing, it was just a 1-year thing.
Just 1 year.
Okay, so hopefully if we can get above 2%, like 2.5 or 3, that would really enable us perhaps to bring some of these lower paid jobs up.
Yeah, we have a plan. I mean, ultimately, if you remember last year, we looked at changing the sub pay for our teachers, and then we went into negotiation for the WA group. It's the same thing we're doing this year. We were looking to increase the sub pay for our WSP group, and then we're going into negotiations as well. So the expectation is next year, we plan on raising the sub pay for our AFSCME group, and then we're going to go into negotiations the following months.
Thank you.
Thanks for pointing that out, Sue. Great. All right, then all those in favor of approving the para educator and clerical staff compensation increase, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye, motion carried. That takes us then to item K. And that recommended motion is the Board of Education approve the date of October 28th, 2019 at 5 p.m. to hold a public hearing for the sale or disposal of surplus property as outlined.
So moved.
Thanks, Sue. And a second? Thanks, Esther.
I just wondered what this was. It doesn't identify what or school property such as equipment, furnishings, and supplies. What is?
We have a building with lots of different items at Castle Hill. And this is an opportunity to sell those things that will probably never be used again in the district. Outdated equipment that is now been superseded by newer or more modern or fits the program that they're doing. This is a practice that in the past we've done a couple of sales in old buildings, Orange and Edison, but this one is they will, Chatterbox is the company that we have used before, and they are the ones doing it again, and they do it for several districts in the area, that they will go and pick up all of the equipment and sell it out of their facility. Then, you know, in this case, this building in particular, obviously not everything's being sold, so that allows the equipment that's being sold to be removed, and it doesn't get confused with the things that we want to keep. So this is a periodic thing that several of the districts we found around us are doing, and Chatterbox does that for them and brings it to their facility and then does all the promoting and online pictures and so on. So it will be very well known by the time the sale date is there.
So where is our location? Where would people go to physically look at stuff?
I don't know where their location is.
Okay. But there will be an opportunity to physically look at it, not just online.
So we won't physically move it all out of Castle Hill building to another building, or potentially we will?
Chatterbox will do that.
But, so it's pretty dated stuff. It was in Castle Hill then, pretty much. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right. All those in favor then of approving the hearing date for the sale and disposal of surplus property, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye, motion carried. The next item on our agenda then is board policy changes, and this is the second reading for item L. Read 'em for item L. And the recommended motion is the board approve the following policies: board officers, employee outside employment, licensed employee contract release, academic progress / promotions and retention, administering medication to students, school calendar, and career and technical education.
So moved.
Thank you, Sue. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jesse. And discussion. Tara, you're back at the microphone.
I'm back. Happy to entertain any questions.
On 505.6, page 39. The last paragraph under elementary starts out, if a parent requests retention or promotion. Reading through this implies that everybody will go to the next, there will be no retention unless a parent requests it. Is that really our policy?
Not at all.
There's no authorization here for any school administrator to retain. As near as I can read. It describes, additional assistance, and each of the
But I think above that, Lyle, because
It does-
didn't we talk about that a little bit, Tara, in the Policy and Review Committee? But you're talking about Waterloo students are expected to meet high academic standards throughout the school year, recognizing students have varied developmental and educational needs. The time to achieve the educational standards should be flexible. So extended year, extended week, you know, so I
Multi-age
think.
programs.
Yeah, I think that addresses that if the district feels that it needs to be an extended year or, you know, alternate scheduling practice, that we have that right to do that, I think is how we read that in policy review.
Would you like us to add a sentence that is more,
Well, yeah.
more clear in that
Yeah.
second paragraph?
I think
That makes sense. I mean, that's fine.
I think the extended year is, I'm not sure if that's adding 3 weeks onto the current
Yeah,
year,
right.
or that doesn't necessarily,
Alternative scheduling practices, I don't know, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, we could certainly
Could
add
we
a sentence in there.
Take it back to policy review and have that sentence added, and then we can bring it back for a first and second reading. So I guess I would ask that we just remove.
yeah, I'm just thinking if the starts probably with the teacher and the administrator. If they feel it's really best for that child's interest to be retained, and I know there's, there has to be something other than recycling through the same program that didn't work the first time, but I just would like that authorization to be more clear if it's, because we don't want students going to the next level when they really don't have the skills to succeed at that level. Is my
I agree with that, Lyle. I think what that does is it allows for the narrative of social promotion again, which is, I know, something that this board has, voted against in the past, but maybe this wording does kind of allude to that. So I would just recommend that we table it and revisit it.
So what I would like to do is ask the board, both Sue and Jesse, if you would entertain a friendly amendment to strike 505.6 from our vote tonight and take it back to policy review.
Yes.
Yes.
So it would be board officers, employee outside employment, licensed employee contract release, administering medication to students, school calendar, and career and technical education that we're voting on the second reading tonight. Is that
Yes.
Amended as
Yeah.
stated,
Amended as
yes.
stated, okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions or clarifications? I just wanted to get that little piece taken care of, so. All right, then seeing none, all those in favor of approving the amended motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye, motion carried. That takes us then to item M, which is on page 44. And the recommended motion here is that the Board of Education approve submission of the request to the SBRC for $1,646,657.72 in modified allowable growth to provide 100% spending authority for the 2018-19 actual LEP program costs, and that this increased allowable growth will be funded by 2020-2021 cash reserve levies.
So moved.
Thank you, Jesse. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sue. And discussion. Can turn this over to Michael Coughlin, and I'm sure we all have a bunch of questions.
First of all, just to clarify the terminology, this is LEP, Limited English Proficient, but we all call it ELL. So that's what we're talking about, the English second language. And we get weighted funding for that. And it is promoted very heavily by the state to meet the services that are required for ELL students, not necessarily stay within budget. And it is something that the state has increased the weighting in the last few years. It's still on their radar, and it is for many districts, ours is one being in particular, that we have a heavy population of second language pupils, that we have a high cost. If you look on page 45, the program itself actually costs $3.6 million just for the ELL services. And when you look on page 46, it starts out showing that expense on the right-hand side, but then on the left it shows that we're only getting weighting of $1.2 million that come with those students. And I know Amy White has been here in the past and has spoken very eloquently about the needs of ELL students, of saying it's not just conversational language that they have to learn instructional language to be able to understand what they're learning and understanding. But on line 12 on page 46, the 1.2 million that we get for that weighting, but we also get 13, they also identify as part of those expenses Title III grant, which is also ELL, plus the TSS money, which is the automatic increase that the state gives every teacher. So that's also part of that 3.6. So they're just identifying that to say that's really like an extra revenue going against that 3.6. And then on line 15 is the modified allowable growth that comes up every December after enrollment count to say how many more ELL students did we have than last year. And since the funding is a year behind, the board every year authorizes the authority to recognize the authority of the extra ELL. So it's not a cash revenue, but it is an authority revenue on page 15. So that brings us up to 1.993 million, almost 2 million. But we're still 1.6 short of the total cost of ELL. And when we were looking at that a little bit, and for those of you who've been on the board for a few years, we've been at the 700,000 to 800,000 to 900,000 level of overspending for quite a few years in a row. But in the last couple of years, it has been a state push, and it has been a local effort. I know Charles McNulty that sat in Stephanie's chair just the last few years. That was a very prominent goal of his, and that we did hire several more teachers for ELL. And if you remember, and I don't know all the details, Stephanie can speak to it as well, the dual language program, that was all brand new. That wasn't, that was additional teachers as well. So it has continued to grow. It was 800,000 or 900,000 last year. The overage was 1.1 million, and this year it's 1.6. And in that, just comparing, it was 600,000 roughly just for salaries. So that would be teachers plus interpreters plus paras, and then 200,000 increase of benefits that went along with that. So the expenses went up, the revenues went up a little bit. So the overall overage of the program is 1.646 billion. Now, again, this is that lesson in cash and authority. For the board to approve this, what you are approving is saying we will take back that authority. It will get added to our authorized balance. It does not guarantee that the board backs it with cash. That's a decision that you will make in March and April when you decide on the tax rate for the 2021 school year. So that's what the motion is talking about, that the board can authorize taking back this authority, which we have always done, because it's the basis of our whole funding and financial stability, is what our authority is. Our capacity is another word to say for that. But it doesn't necessarily mean that there will be money raised for this. But getting the authority back is a very important feature in this. It allows us to keep that ability. And it is really the health of the district, what your authorized balance is. Your unspent balance is what we refer to it as. So that would be the recommendation for tonight, is that the board does accept this as approving the request to the School Budget Review Committee, because they're the only ones that can approve this. But it is a local decision. They will not look at it and say, no, you can't do that. If you request it, it is up to the local board to do that. And then when we talk about taxes in the spring, then it will be, can we back this with cash from the tax levy? So that will also have several different components of property valuation and what the new money is, and all of the things that go along with deciding what tax rate the district is going to levy for the following year.
And I understand the authority argument, and I support it for that reason. But still, if you look at it comprehensively, is the reason we're not able to stay within the budget on this item, is it because we have students that we're giving ELL or whatever it is services to
LEP.
that no longer qualify for a weighting? No.
It's just the weighting doesn't cover the actual,
Just like special ed. same
doesn't
thing.
cover the actual service that we're delivering.
So,
So if they give us $1 and
Yeah.
it costs us $2,
but we have to look at the efficiency of our services then.
Of course.
Why, why aren't we? Is it because we have so many languages, and when you've got 3 kids in a certain language, you have to have a person address that, which may not be efficient at all, but that's kind of the hand we're dealt? Or is it because our class sizes are too low? I mean, what's...
Do you want to take it?
I'm assuming not all districts overspend their budget.
When we had to actually go and request approval from the SBRC for this, it wasn't just up to the local board. There was about 12 to 15 districts in the state that were logistically kind of the way we are, with many languages, many different populations. And it was big districts and small districts. I know Postville in my area, my hometown area, is very heavy in that. And the ones that had a significant population all overspent.
So have we looked at the structure of our program and saying, can we possibly live within the budget somehow?
You want to take that, or?
We're constantly looking at our program, looking at our staffing. Right now, Kingsley and I are working together, looking at staffing. We currently staff what I would think would be pretty high, but we're also checking with the other UENs to see what exactly that they're staffing at. You'd also mentioned interpreters. So if we have 3 kids who speak one language, instead of hiring that person and paying salary and benefits, we usually contract out as needed for something like that. So our interpreters that we have hired full-time are the ones that have our primary language, our French, our Spanish, our Bosnian are the primary. We also have now the different languages from the students that are from Burma as well.
So is our our dual language courses significantly contributing to this deficit?
I don't
No,
think we're
they're not-
taking
those
dual
aren't-
language out of the ELL
Dual language is a different program.
That's a different, yeah,
I thought,
because that's regular instruction. That's
Yeah, that's
we're not
like,
taking the-
what LEP is, like when a student, what that process is? Because I think there may be.
Yeah, the question is about what LEP is, and I don't know, Steph, do you want to take that, or I can?
It's limited English proficiency. So when students come in, if a parent, there is a survey that the parent has to fill out. It's called a home language survey. If anything other than English, oh, okay. If anything other than, well, I'm going to look at you because you're the one that asked the question. So, I appreciate it. So any student who the parent has marked that English is not their home language, they are immediately tested, and we use a test that determines what their English proficiency is. So usually it's limited English proficiency. And so that test determines not where we place them, although we do have some schools that do not have ELL services. That is something that is being advocated for. But again, for us to be fiscally responsible, that is something that we're still looking at to see, do we blanketly offer ELL services everywhere, or do we continue with what we're doing to serve our students?
So how's it determined they're now proficient and no longer warrant a weighting?
So they would have to take with the state ELPA 21 test, and 2 years in a row they would have to receive a 4 or 5, and that if after 2 years in a row, then we have to still monitor them, but we wouldn't get the weighting, but then they're off the list. And so they're proficient.
A student could be in the system.
Correct.
For 7 years.
Absolutely. Correct.
Now, if I'm reading this correctly, it's about 10% of our population that is LEP. Is that correct?
Yep, I believe so. It's 9
And
something,
then
I believe.
I counted 37 different languages here.
Mhm.
Okay.
I think Andrew said 35 in the paper, 36.
Jose, I'm just curious. Old English. What group is speaking Old English? I'm really curious here.
Well, that would be a question that I probably can't answer.
I actually don't know that. We just talked about that as well over here. I don't know.
I
but we will
tried
definitely
to
from the
look
United
it up.
Kingdom?
I
I
can't
didn't know.
find, you know.
So I just want to speak to just briefly the cost effectiveness and the responsibility and accountability of the school district to help educate our limited English proficient learners. One of the great things about this district is how, and I think the Joke Foundation talked how we work comprehensively with our individual students. So youth tend to pick up languages a lot quicker than their parents, and so one of the things that we want to also do is to help with family literacy. So and I think embedded in this is somewhat part of that family literacy. So what that means is we work with the entire family collectively. So imagine having a student, English language learner, who's explaining their report card to their parent who doesn't speak any English, or if there's a critical incident or something like that. So we have to really make sure that we provide for this language proficiency, because a lot of times our students are helping their parents understand their homework, other important things. It's a public health issue, and a lot of times that comes through the students. So I kind of want maybe the community to look at it that way, but I also agree, Lyle, that we need to look at if there are some gaps in how we provide those services so that we won't go over budget. But it's very important that we do that.
And aren't we
Sadly, it's only us
mandated
that really
to
does it.
provide this service. We're mandated to provide this
Absolutely.
service.
The
Right.
state mandates us, and the state
Yeah, and
says
I'm
it doesn't matter whether you're within your budget or not, you still are required.
Yeah, and I think some of it lies is like if you get some of these outlying languages that there's one student, you still have to provide the full gamut of services to that one student.
Yep, and
You
not
know, so
only
it's
do we
not
have to,
some-
we should.
Right,
I mean, just
exactly.
even
But it's not something that you can group people together, because I've even
Sometimes.
talked to Amy White as far
Sometimes.
as even different dialects within
Correct.
Language.
Correct.
Which then again would require an additional staff or person to provide that service.
And I'm not arguing that point. I totally agree. You know, probably the most important key to success is to learn English. But, you know, maybe we should provide more sooner, so they learn English sooner if that's possible. I'm just look at the entire thing. So rather than being in there 7 years, if we can get them proficient in 2 years with more intensive, then they would probably do better, and we may end up I'm just just,
I think maybe we're wanting to know the permissive versus non-permissive uses for this budget. Is that the main issue that we're talking about? Lyle, maybe?
I think we're just
No.
talking about the overspent amount. The one thing I would point out is that the research shows, and the state of Iowa did a report on this, the research shows that it takes 7 years on average for a child to become proficient if they are coming in. And it depends. If they come in mastering, if they come in and they have mastered their own language, their first language, non-English, then they pick up English much quicker. If they haven't mastered their second language or their first language, then it just takes a lot longer. And so we are serving them for 7-8 years, but we're getting funding for 5. So for example, Rhonda just asked me about Bosnian language, and I see that we have 134 students who are being considered for funding here, but yet we have 400 kids who are tagged as Bosnian speakers. So we're not getting funding for all of those kids. These are just students but we're serving the rest of them, but not generating any dollars.
that was my first question. The answer
Yes.
was no. My question was, are we serving students that we don't get a weighting for?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are, because we are mandated to serve them until they are proficient, but we only generate at maximum 5 years of funding, and that was upped in, I think, the session of 2013 from 3 years, because we used to only get 3 years of funding, and now we get 5 years of funding. But we have to serve them even if it's the 6th year. If they do not test out on the state's test, the ELPA 21, we must serve them. So yes.
So, did you say the number of students we have in that category? I mean, is it a significant number? Is that one of the reasons we're over budget?
Absolutely. And the more students we have, the more students who end up in that 5th year or 6th year past that. So as that number grows, the number of students who we may serve for that 5th, 6th, and potentially 7th year does grow as well. So I apologize too if I didn't connect on your question exactly what you were asking, so I apologize for that.
No, well, it's kind of interesting because you were talking about where and how we serve. Because, I was out this week. I actually dropped off flyers to different buildings, and it's kind of interesting. Cause I had last year's numbers, this year's number. You start to see, families even once they get to the community where they shift between buildings once they get here. So where kids may be here 1 year, and the next year you may have a
Significant shift
to another
somewhere.
building.
Sure.
So.
Does that help, Lau?
Okay. Thank you.
All right, okay. Then all those in favor of approving the limited English proficient allowable costs in excess of revenue, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye, motion carried. That takes us to item N on page 48, and this is the special education 2019. Oh, I'm so sorry. The Special Education 2019 Modified Allowable Growth Request. And that recommended motion is the Board of Education accept the recommendation of the Finance Committee and approve the request to the School Budget Review Committee for allowable growth and supplemental aid payment for the negative special education balance of $685,364 for the 2018-19 fiscal year.
So moved.
Thank you. And this comes from committee, so it doesn't need a second. And discussion.
Okay, I need a couple of disclaimers in this to help you understand where we're at. This year, as I did the report that's following, it's called the special ed supplement that goes through several different schedules that talk about tuition in, tuition out, revenues, Medicaid, and as I was preparing this document, I noticed that a couple of the numbers did not transfer to the summary page in the full revenue. and I have been trying to get a hold of somebody. I have been calling and emailing, and I think they're on vacation. But anyway, so there may be, if it follows through as it did in the previous years, that this number could drop at least by 120,000, roughly. But the other part that is unique to special education is that this is the same type of exercise that if you overspend your budget, you can request the overage in authority. But what the state does in addition to this is if you don't spend enough and you can only keep 15%, and you've got a balance that goes back to the state, and there are districts like that, that they will take that money and give it to the districts that have negative balances. So there might be a minor adjustment on state aid for next year with this, but we don't know what that number is until all of the reports are in and they can calculate all of that. So this is just a placeholder for now. And again, it is the same issue that we would just be approving the authority to be given back to the district, and then the decision to back it with cash would be part of the tax, published budget tax discussion in March and April. But I did want to draw your attention to page 60. This is the summary of how special education funding works. And when you look at this, and it's a $33 million plus budget, this is bigger than 3/4 of all the districts in the state, their main budget. So special ed is a major expense. We have about 1,800 kids that are under that. So it's a lot of money. And it's a lot of services, and there's a lot of variance, and everything from the level 1 students to the very severe physically and mentally handicapped students. So it's quite an extensive program with many staff members involved in this. But the upper half of this report, and you can look at the three weightings in the first three columns, level 1, 2, and 3. But we get state funding for the weighting, which is $26,800,000. There's tuition in receipts, and that's one of the numbers that may be a little higher with the adjustment, about $313,000. Medicaid reimbursements. This is the highest number that the district has ever had, $2.6 million. And the effort that we have partnered with Timberline, and now that they put in electronic claims of what we can charge and get reimbursed to Medicaid, is continuing to grow as we understand what qualifies and getting things in on a timely basis. The Part B receipts is just a special federal funding that comes for special ed, and it is this year, started last year, and this year it's being used for the behavioral study and the behavioral MANTS training, if you've heard that being talked about. That's going to be used in that area. The teacher quality, the $1.1 million, that's the TSS money again for special ed. So it's not really a revenue to special ed, it's just offsetting the expense of the special ed teachers that get TSS money. So altogether it's about $31,445 million of revenue. And when we started this year, we'd actually gone through a couple years of study in special ed, and others can comment on this. And when Ivan Gentry came in this year, or at the beginning of 18 to 19, that was with kind of the direction of saying, here's what we found, here's what we want you to work on, figure out what you want to work on. And there was also some positions that they didn't fill all of the previous year. So there was more people hired in 18-19 than there was in the year before. So when you go down, the main expenses of salary and benefits were about $22 million. You come down to non-contracted services, and non-contracted services and pupil transportation and tuition out that we pay for how other districts charge us for their kids is a number that we don't know until very close to the end of the whole cycle. And as we were projecting the trends from the year before, as we looked at our revenue and our expected expenditures, we were thinking we were going to be about 1.5 million over. So we expected that. We had carried a balance into the year of 1.4 million, which is unusual for a district of our size. Most districts run in a negative all the time. So we were expecting to use up most of our balance, but when the year came through and some of the final numbers came from the other districts and River Hills and transportation, that 1.5 million became 2 million. So we actually went from 1.4 million to the good to 685,000 negative. The other part that I just want to show you, as you look at the expenditures coming down to 25,853,000, then there's a 91,000 in there for administrative costs, but then it's general program percentage, and it's $6 million. When we get money for special ed, we don't get to spend it all directly, because it's basically indirect costs for the 1.0 portion of all of those kids. So even though we can't charge Ivan Gentry's salary to special ed, because he's not a direct person working with the students, they also realize that the special ed program is going to take the cost of lights and operation of the building and overhead and administrators and so on. So they factor in a percentage of saying, this is a cost that you get to charge towards special ed, because they really do cost that as part of your normal operation of the district. So it's kind of a complicated percentage. It's different for each of the three levels, as you can imagine. So $6 million of this cost is just covering the normal operating costs for the district. So it's not all charged directly to special ed kids. So that's a $6 million charge. So that's just a part of it that not a lot of people are aware of. And that number kind of sticks out when you go down the list, that there's 6 million. That's just general miscellaneous. And then the tuition out of 1.5 million below that. So we had ending expenses of 33,587,000 and to the revenues of 31,445,000. So we were over $2 million, but we started with 1.4. Yep. So we're down to 685, and I'm hoping with the correction that I finally get, and I will report that to you when I can get through to the department, that they may drop a little bit, and then maybe there may be some overage from other districts that will be applied to that.
So this won't have to come back before us if that
No.
number is.
They
we
will
just-
make that adjustment.
They'll make the adjustment.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And it won't show up until we do taxes next year, when we actually put it in the formula of SBRC awards. They will adjust it by then.
On page 61, the transportation, basically it's the same number of students as last year and year before, roughly. But transportation went up 38%. Was there a change in what's charged, or?
Not a change in the charge, it's just the number of students that are riding and how far they have to go. Because this involves vans that go different places, Waverly and other districts. But this is a number that's controlled by the special ed department themselves. Because a few years ago, we were wrestling with this. And I said, I can't track your special ed kids. You tell me who it is and how many kids are on every route and how many students have special wheelchair buses and vans that go. So this is their culmination of what they believe the actual cost of their special ed kids every year. One of the big amounts is to River Hills.
But they being who?
Special ed staff.
The special ed staff is figuring out by looking at their IEPs and who's on a bus and how much they're being billed and how much of a route is special ed kids and how many special routes there are.
But again, the number of students hasn't changed, and the transportation has more than doubled in 2 years. That doesn't really make sense to me.
Well, sir, serving more out than in, or something, or changing that.
What?
Are we serving more out of the area that we're having?
Was that? I can't believe there's that much change. Number of students is up here on top. So that's the same, but the transportation budget went from 830,000 to 1.7 million.
But in 17-18, it was in 1.265.
Yeah,
Well, it went up hugely last year, and it went up hugely another 500,000 this year.
Right. But it went down almost 2 million in the previous 2 years.
I don't know. It just seems like there must be a difference in how they calculate that or how they allocate those costs, because if we're really truly spending twice on transportation what we did 2 years ago, and it's a total of $800,000 more, we really need to dig into that and see what's going on, I would say.
it's a very individual thing, and we will look at it.
And is it correct to say that in my calculations, about 17% of our students approximately then have an IEP?
That's correct. Run 16, 17% trend-wise.
Thank you.
And I assume it's just coincidence, not a error of some kind, that this year's level 3 is 937.1, exactly the same as last year, 937.1.
Well, I don't know if it's the exact same kids, but it is the exact same number.
Okay, just a coincidence, huh?
But that's the weighting.
That's the weighting.
That's the weighting, not the actual student.
But
Well,
it
I
would
know,
be,
but
in
it's
any level,
positive.
it would be the
Pencil out
same
exactly
number
the
of
same
kids.
For 2 years.
And then the salary increase, I assume, is due in part to the extra hours.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Michael.
Yep.
All right, so all those in favor of approving the special education 2019 modified allowable growth request, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye, motion carried. That concludes our action items for this evening, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Lindeman for her superintendent's report.
Thank you so much. Just one thing tonight. I just wanted to thank everyone involved in our amazing open house on Thursday. We had such a great contingency of people. We think we had approximately 350 people filter in and out. Not everybody was there for the program, but this is for the Waterloo Career Center open house, the ribbon cutting, and I thought that the governor just did a great job on her keynote, and we had comments from Senator Grassley, Senator Ernst, from Congresswoman Finkenauer, and then of course our local people, and the mayor spoke, and had a great contingency of guests from Hawkeye and our businesses, and it was an amazing event, and so we are thrilled to have that, to have the Waterloo Career Center up and running.
Thanks, Jane. I'll start down here with Jesse for board member reports or comments.
Congratulations to all the band activities this week. Eastside, Division 1
Yeah,
ready?
yep.
So congratulations to them.
And Westbrook.
And nice not having a repeat of 2 years ago when it was
Mud.
complete mud on Memorial Stadium. So
Yep, Sue?
I don't know if Jane was going to address it all, but the mandatory 8th grade meetings, I think that's up and live everywhere for 8th grade parents. I'm not positive of all those dates, but I know it's on the website, and they'll be going home to 8th graders, I'm assuming, and emails. And so if you have an 8th grade student, it's very important that you come to
Get
that
there.
meeting.
That's right.
right here.
Because it gives a lot of valuable information, and it just is a good start for your student entering high school. And then also conferences are tomorrow and Thursday. So very important. If you want to see how your student's doing, every parent should go. That's my opinion.
Woo-hoo. That's right. Yep.
That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Sue. Rhonda? Aster?
Just real quick, with the weather quickly changing, just make sure kids are bundling up, especially those at the bus stops.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Lyle?
Just a further comment on the Career Center ribbon cutting. You know, we're pretty certain we're going down the right path, but you have to continue to ask, you know, are we really going down the right path? And so I was listening pretty intently to what, you know, the senators and governor and representatives had to say. And they all significantly tied it into other programs of need. And so I guess, you know, more than ever, I think it is directionally correct. We are on the right track. And they, you know, they didn't just comment, oh, great, what a nice place, which they're kind of obligated to do, I suppose, but really tied it into other programs. And I thought that was pretty significant, that we're kind of an important cog in that whole business development wheel. And so I took some, I guess, just believe we truly are on the right track, so.
All right, y'all stole everything that I was going to say, so I have no more comments. We meet again in this room October 28th at 5 p.m. And I'm going to ask the board, is there anything else to come before us this evening? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Sue. In a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We are adjourned. Thanks and have a great night. It's chilly in here.
It's freezing. I'm numb. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
You have a meeting at 7?
My family's here going out for Ryan's last football game, so his grandparents are here, and they all went out, but I might have missed it. They were eating at 6:30, so I might
You
just.
can say anything you want.
Probably not, but that's all right. I'll just go.
Yeah,
They might be, it depends on if they've gotten their food already, I think.
Day, of course, you're never free.
Yeah.
letters that totally dissed me, and other ones that totally supported, you know, so it's all over the board. Sure. No,
So
I
we
do
figure
not
out
have
where
to
Old
have
English
the other
is?
sign, too.
I'm like,
Thought you might.
I don't know if like, is it,
And do we do reciprocity?
Of course, yes, definitely.
I don't have my signs with me. Oh,
They were like, what about, hasn't it been
yeah.
before? Don't you think it's time? I'm like, actually, I kind of like, no, I did, actually. I said, you know, I said, you know, we might disagree on some things. I said, but I learned a lot from him.
Yeah.
I said, that's my buddy. So, vote for me, like, right, exactly, that's what's up.
And I think the whole board has good chemistry, and it's just
heard that at the.
keep a good term together. Team
Had a
together.
couple after the WCC thing, and
Yeah.
went with a couple of people, and they were like, "We got to try to keep the board the way it is."
Yeah, so I've been telling my friends.
Yeah.
So that's why.
So what's your address? Can I put a sign in your?
It's McReynolds School. I'm gonna. I'll email it.
I mean, for a sign, what's your physical, your house address?
Oh, 437. But I have it in my.
He said to put one of his. You have signs?
Oh yeah. 437 Charles